Welcome to our second session of the Boma Studio. If you participated last time, we started the Boma Studio a couple of weeks ago. It's a series of conversations about how to navigate our joint future. And we are broadcasting today from the Berlin studio. My name is Stephan Balzer. I'm the co-founder of Boma Global in New York. And to just structure the 60 minutes we have together, I will introduce our today's guest, and you will be able to answer questions. So there's two ways you can do that. If you are on the Facebook live stream, you can do so just via the comment section on Facebook. Or if you are joining through Zoom, you see the little Q&A button, or F&A in the German version, where you can just post your questions, and my team will move them to me. And we will do that probably in the last 15 minutes, so around 12:45, for the last 10-15 minutes to discuss with our guest. That leads me to today's guest. Last time, 2 weeks ago, we had a truly Asian perspective. We had book author, strategist Parag Khanna here, and he was sharing an Asian insight on what Corona's impact is in Asia, and how the different Asian countries are actually working on this together. Today, we're moving to Europe, and we're moving to a pure business discussion. And I'm very proud today to have a phenomenal woman with us. Her name is Anastassia Lauterbach, and I will shortly talk a little bit about her before we get her on video here. So Anastassia is a seasoned executive. She started her career at McKinsey and then had executive positions at Qualcomm, Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile, and the Munich Re. Today, she serves as a C-level executive. She has different board roles as non-executive director. I think I can mention them. We have EasyJet, we have Dun & Bradstreet and Wirecard. She also is engaged in a fund investing in startups, and she has numerous jobs on consulting. So I think there couldn't be a better person for us to actually have a conversation on the impact on business when it comes to Corona. So welcome, Anastassia. Nice to have you.
Thank you so much, Stephan.
So I know you've been very busy. I think it's a very intense time. How is your private life currently going on? You usually are up in the air more or less all the time between the different continents, West Coast, East Coast, London, Europe, also Asia. How does it feel to be grounded?
So I must admit, I truly enjoy it. I love it so much, I can't even tell. So my life is much better than it usually is. Of course, it's a very strange feeling because I'm quite used to spend maybe 3 to 4 months a year in the United States. So not in a piece, but I go back and forth, mostly to New York, and then I volunteer to West Coast as I work with a number of companies, and my AI lab is actually in San Diego, so it's on West Coast. So it's a very strange feeling to be completely detached from the US, and of course I have weekly Zoom calls with my former US colleagues, or with my current US colleagues. I must admit the situation there is quite hard. A number of my former colleagues are in hospitals because of COVID. This virus is still not quite understood. It has impact not just on lungs, but on kidneys and heart. It's very hard to say when the US economy will open up to the extent it used to be open for all of us. And frankly, I don't count on going to the United States this calendar year. I think it's not just because of being cautious, but I think there will be some policies in place by Trump administration which will prevent business people, green card holders, to be reintegrated in the US economy, same way we were integrated before. But we will see. It's kind of very interesting what is currently happening. And I could describe it as a trend, as a fragmentation of global economy. So it used to be very dense. So, you know, you could be in Singapore, you could be in South Korea, you could be in the United States. It was all more or less the same. You work together. So right now I'm feeling there's a huge stress on what is local and what is local resilience. We can't understand global resilience right now. There's no resilience barometer for businesses. We just know that it's not as resilient as we would like the economy to be. And until a vaccine has been found and widely applied, travel restrictions will remain. And you can go only so far on Zoom. There are certain things which need to have a face-to-face discussions, and I just don't see this to happen.
Yeah, well, let's look at your governance roles. How does the governance work in these, you know, these big corporations? I mean, you're on board on public companies as well. Were these boards able to convert to digital right away? Was that like this to have, you know, the digital boardroom? Was it always a difficult process?
Look, I mean, we need to distinguish. So I've stepped down from the board of Dun & Bradstreet because we took the company private. So I'm still having quite great relationships with the company and with the new founders, but I'm not in an active board role there. I'm in an active board role on two public companies, EasyJet, which are based in Newton, near London, and then obviously Wirecard in Munich. So we had to transition. So obviously we have our calls on Zoom, we have our calls on Skype, and both companies have digital platforms to manage documentation. So those platforms are highly secured. One is Diligent, we use it at Wirecard, and another one is Board Intelligence used by EasyJet. They're quite similar. So this is working just fine. Yes, the work has intensified because obviously at EasyJet, the whole fleet is underground, and there are a number of questions, you know, how to secure cash, what to do with the workforce, how to manage it. So this is just what everyone is experiencing right now. So governance work has intensified because of this crisis. There are no secrets there. This is all public information, and you have to watch what is your current resilience, what does it mean for a specific situation, what does it mean in terms of managing the balance sheet, and what does it mean for the future. Obviously, companies which were quite, let's say, digital in the past, they have some advantages because they've already used data, they've already used training the workforce in a digital way. So this is all to their advantage. Other companies are not that greatly positioned, and they have massive difficulties. So I believe as one of impact of COVID, we will face revaluation of stocks, and valuation of companies will be treated differently. I don't know how differently, but I think factors like how resilient is this cash flow? This will be a huge question. Then what is the risk appetite here? Then health of equity. Who is in your investment base? You know, of course, you have major funds, institutional investors. This is more or less clear. But for example, if you have someone who is coming from China, from the Middle East, or you know, some small fund, what does it mean? Or some wealthy individuals. So then obviously, what is your relationship with state? Yeah. Do you need to take state aid? So we already faced certain things during financial crisis. You know that there was a bailout of a number of financial institutions. So there are some programs which are currently put in place to help companies. What does it mean for corporate resilience and for this company's future? So a lot of question marks. I don't have a crystal ball. And frankly, the situation is changing on a weekly basis because we can't say, let's say, on the 1st of June, we will be open, or on the 1st of July, we will be open. Yeah. And we don't know if we open and it's too soon, then we might close again. What does it mean? Yeah. So I would love to give you a more concrete answer here, but I can't.
No, I know. I mean, I just didn't invite you, to finally get the crystal ball answer. But I think it's good to have a perspective because you're involved in, with different businesses, different industries. You have a tech background, and you see technology very different compared to, other executives that we have here in Germany. And let's maybe talk a little about the role of technology. You just mentioned a little bit that you think there might be even impact on the reevaluation of companies based on maybe even digital competence or the degree of digitization within the economy. If you compare, maybe, I don't know if you can compare, but you've seen US companies as well. Let's stick to Germany. How well do you see Germany prepared? And maybe we can make a difference between our Mittelstand, which is actually the backbone, mid-cap companies, and also public companies. Where do you see us on a scale between 0 and 10? I know it's always difficult to generalize, but if you would compare to Asia, China, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and US, and where are we? Are we in the middle? Are we good? What do you think? Where are we right now?
I would say it's probably 3 to 4. Okay. With 10 being the best, if we go like this, and 1 being the worst. So I would say 3 or 4. A number of things. So what is very important, and this question is being asked in a lot of audiences. Technology is not l'art pour l'art. So technology exists to as a tool, let's say. It's an instrument for optimization of your top line and your bottom line. Unless, of course, you are Google and you are really like in the business of to deliver technology, or you are Qualcomm or Cisco. So technology is a tool. And everything starts with a business question. So it's not just, oh, let's use technology. It's what is your business question? What do you try to solve? For example, we are too high on costs in maintenance, let's say, of rails. I'm fantasizing right now, but this is actually a real story behind this example, because labor costs are so high. So yes, we can use technology, sensors, IoT technology, and deep learning, so artificial intelligence technology, to optimize effectiveness of your workforce and efficiency of your workforce, because we will go into remote maintenance mode. So we install a sensor, then the sensor will be subject to some models. Those models will evaluate the conditions, weather, vibration, the weight, whatever, and then predict, let's say, this piece of the rail might be broken, so let's send a team out there to have a look and then to repair or maintain. So this is something where technology has a certain purpose. Of course, you can say we are completely not digital in terms of our sales channels. So we need online sales channel, we need online payment system to contribute to our top line growth. Again, this is not a huge brainer, right? So you just use an existing tool, and you need platforms, you need systems which will help you, enable you to use these tools. And here we start with a huge cultural issue. So technology is still not regarded as something which belongs into a boardroom, into a strategy discussion. So technologist is someone who is in the basement, right? And for example, if an iPad is broken at the C room, then someone will call an IT guy and he will repair the iPad. So, but this is not technology. I mean, we've always seen such examples. This is not technology. So the discussion is, for example, where are our data? So do we understand what data we have, right? I mean, it's not just personal data and subject to GDPR and all those good things, but what do we know and how do we collect those data? Do we have data management in our company? So is it everything ERP systems, or do we have a data lake, for example? Are this data structured or unstructured? Can we derive value? Do we have IP? So this intellectual property, it's something which has to be completely reviewed, especially because of COVID, because you might generate value from this. And then I think, which might be a huge discussion for the future, and this is something I'm currently thinking a lot about, what is the best structure to collect, host, and process your data? And I believe here, I don't want to go very, very far today discussing this, but I believe that current web is completely flawed. The value is getting centered around just a number of businesses, most prominent businesses within top 10 of Fortune companies. And I believe we need to decentralize the web. So this is my personal belief. The more I think about it, the more obvious this whole issue gets to me. But just try to have a discussion on a decentralized web and decentralized data markets with, let's say, a random German corporation. It will be difficult because first, they will probably not quite understand what data are they talking about. Then what does it mean, decentralized web? Yeah, what does it mean to have a data market? Why? Yeah, who should we sell or work with? What is the ecosystem? So trying to think in ecosystems in terms of technology delivery and data processing, it's something which is not, let's say, native to our culture, to our corporations. But I think a lot of willingness to dive into this. And I've been training a number of Mittelstand companies and their C-level suites. So how should they think about the processes, data, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity? So, and I just see a lot of openness. People want to do something, but how concrete are they going to become? I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, but let's stick to the cultural issue. It's interesting because if you place Germany in 3 and 4 on a scale of 10, that means we're a little behind. And there's a lot of data, there's researchers, there's a lot of studies that have shown this years ago, that top executives in Germany lack even in parts fundamental understanding of future technologies, including AI, robotics, all these things. They don't even have the basic knowledge. And also, as you say, representation in boardroom or even top management is just not there. Do you think, if we currently look at the huge disruption that is happening around the globe right now, don't you think it might be an accelerator right now with COVID that these companies have to massively move to a digital mindset to be more resilient in the future? Because, I mean, to be realistic, okay, this is happening right now. You know, we might have this happening every 3 years now. If there's another one coming, if we have a new COVID-21, whatever, in 3 years, what do we do then? So how do you see that play out for the German? Because we are big, you know, we're an export nation.
Yes.
We want to export our products.
Yes.
As you say, we don't think in data and ecosystem. We are thinking in product.
Yes.
And that very often, what we see as well in the market is something hard to get over, right?
Yes.
To disconnect from the product only.
Yeah. Look, I mean, obviously for me, data and technology is not a question of data and technology, but it's a question of leadership. And leadership demands courage, and courage demands humility. So I think we need to be humble and just admit there are certain things we just can't do on our own, or we just don't know. And I think that those patriarchs of corporations and of German economy, they will not be regarded as people who just can't deliver. But I think that this humility and being humble and admitting we might have gaps, I think it will not hurt them personally. But this is a psychological issue. And obviously, you increase the vulnerability of your teams when you open up. So you engage, let's say, someone who has been in technology for ages, and this person might have certain gaps in different areas, might not quite understand your industry, might be from another high school, might not understand how business is getting done in Germany. So you need to have this openness. And then you need to have people who would translate in between of layers, and you need to introduce a certain level of forgiveness for some communicational missteps. And of course, you will introduce English as the language of your boardrooms, because we don't have this massive pool of talent within our country to engage in German. So this is something where, once again, we need to be self-forgiving and just say, look, I might not be as fluent in English, but I will try my best. And this person who might be native in English, an American or Canadian, whatever, he should or they should slow down. Yeah. But we try to find a common ground, and it's okay and we try not to be judgmental. So this is not just, a layer of knowledge and facts. This is something which is around psychology. And obviously this diversity. So I personally don't like to talk about gender diversity at all. Yeah, diversity for me is a diversity of experiences. So do you have people from different industries, different nations, different backgrounds? So this is what counts for me as diversity. Diversity is a big sister of technology and innovation. And this is what we absolutely require in German corporate rooms. It opens eyes and it accelerates transformation processes.
But so, it's interesting you bring this up, because if I hear words like humbleness, forgivingness, vulnerability, all these things, I would say typical C-suites and boardrooms are not well known for that, right? They're not well known for that. And if you look back to the crisis, financial crisis in the financial sector, also financial sector, 10 years ago, was not very well known and explicit in saying we made mistakes, we will be humble in the future. So if you say, if you describe this as a cultural issue, and I know you don't want to talk about diversity. I can share from my experience. If I have been to boardrooms, seeing C-suites in Germany, we are predominantly up to 95% male. And also, it's interesting, it's a certain generation right now, of course, that is in place.
Yes.
Don't you think, that this generation might, have some issues, maybe from behavior and psychology, to do what you say? For you, it sounds so easy to say, to do it. You just have to be humble. My feeling very often is that they have a hard time to say, I don't know. They have a hard time to say, I have no clue. I don't know where it's going. They can't, because they are stuck in that role. Maybe they even play the role to be a board member, and they pretend to know everything, although it would be better to say, I cannot know everything. How do you see that? I mean, you're interacting with Anglo-Saxon world as well. Is there a difference in?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm open about this. I prefer American and UK boardrooms. So it's just, it's not just that you are more engaged into what is going on with the company. So the governance model is different, but it's just a very different style. So I've never experienced, what I'm experiencing in Germany. And so there are issues everywhere. So it's not like the world is perfect, but so what we absolutely need, and I'm not involved in any circles deciding on this. So just please treat this as my personal opinion. I believe we absolutely need corporate governance reform in Germany, and we need board refreshment policies, maybe laws. For example, you are 72, you step down. So you can't serve on the board beyond 72 in age. And by the way, we have longevity, so they are very healthy, dynamic people of this age, with all due respect. Or you say we limit the number of years on the board. So this is something which German codex tries to introduce, but really enforcement of no longer than 12 years is a max. So, and every company has to develop a set of rules how to take care of this board refreshment practices. I think it's quite unhealthy in current environment if you have a very monolithic culture in the company, a C-suite and the board, and you see, for example, those people spend the whole life in, for example, just 2 companies. Yeah, I'm not saying everyone needs to switch 15 times, but 20, 40 years with the same company, how on earth can you claim that you have a certain horizon to reflect on what is going on in the world? So it's just very difficult. It's human. We are all humans. We are all biased. So bias is a huge issue. It requires a lot of leadership from a chairman to reduce biases in a boardroom or in a C-suite. If you are a corporate CEO, you need to understand that it's not just about competition, but you are a team and you win as a team. However, you might have certain people who are just performing better within this team. Still, they rely on others. And I mean, just this culture of humbleness, it's just reckless right now to admit I know everything and everything will be fine. I believe for me, it's like an immediate red lamp signal. I would consider this to be a red flag. Because we don't know, and we have the black swan events like the COVID, and we might face further events like this, yeah? And those events will be pivotal in our evolution. On top of this, the technology cycles are getting shorter and shorter, yeah? So what we are going to face 15 years from now will be completely different from what we are facing in the last 15 years. So we need to be agile in our thought processes. And this requires diversity in teams. So this is kind of, something I don't know how to really solve, because we have this fragmentation of economies with all travel restrictions. And on the other hand, we completely need people from different countries, different background to work on a team. What I like as well, and I hope it might work for many companies, if they have advisory councils. But it's not, let's say, a toy for a CEO to say, oh, I have those 3 from Silicon Valley and those 5 from Singapore on my advisory council. If this advisory council can't do anything, then obviously, why should this advisory council exist? But you can't solve everything in the boardroom. And if you are too hesitant to introduce change there, maybe you need to start with advisory councils and have different perspective, investment perspective, technology ecosystem perspective, legal perspective. So something like this, don't go into futurism. This is something for, let's say, for great keynotes, but it's not practical. And try to talk to people who might be capable to translate in between of groups and layers. So communication is absolutely a key factor for success right now, and we all need to learn.
Yeah, so I think it's an super interesting time. I think, and I also like the framing you have, and what I understand from what you describe is, there is a chance in Germany right now, taking what's happening right now to maybe reassess how we have done business.
Yes.
Inside how our governance model works. And also we have already questions coming in that we will address in 10, 12 minutes. So there is a chance maybe also to, let's say, rejuvenate. So maybe get fresh blood in, as you say. And I think there's also a research being done that the average advisory board in Germany is actually pretty old, and they stick to their positions too long. So yeah, so maybe looking at a positive turn out of this, maybe there's a chance for companies to take that. So we could actually then move maybe from 3, 4, as you say, maybe to 5 and 6, because as well, if we stick to digital, and let's talk a little bit, because I know you've published on AI, you're an expert in AI as well. Adaptation rate in businesses, let's take an example like AI. Would you place Germany as well on a 3 to 4 when it comes to looking at potential of using AI for your business? Because my experience is in lots of businesses, people say, "Oh, we do this and this.
Yeah.
We don't need AI.
Yeah.
We do products.
Yeah.
We don't need products." So this is very often a quick reaction without actually thinking where within the whole of your ecosystem AI could play a role. How do you see adaptation of technology? Are we as well at a 3 to 4 in Germany compared to North America, UK, other countries?
Look, I mean, so I don't have a holistic view on this because obviously I lack numbers of some industrial association, and I'm not McKinsey any longer, so I wouldn't research, something about this. I'll give you my personal observations. So I think AI, so Germany is not really an AI country, unfortunately. So, and there are a couple of layers in this discussion. So first of all, again, AI is not l'art pour l'art. It should serve a purpose, and we just need to understand that a resilient business in 15 years from now will be a business, anything plus data and AI. And whether it will be deep learning or whether it will be just Bayesian networks, or I don't care. But so there will be a plug-in in every product of whatever, something, agriculture, yeah, plus data and AI. So that means that it's a design issue. So design in terms of how you think about your organization, your processes, your power. So if you have, let's say, an automation in your processes, and we can, for example, see accounting and controlling, yeah? So automation will lead to the fact that everyone, even if someone is not, let's say, a leader, a team leader, or has any title in terms of a management title, so, but this person, let's say, designs something for a market, and this market might be 3 cities in Germany. So, because the numbers are getting automatically uploaded into the system, this person looks at the numbers, at the figures, and can decide what to do with this segment, with this market. He doesn't need to go to a controller, to a segment controller, and ask for information. That means that this layer of management holding a lot of power in the German companies is redundant. So I think there should be willingness to more or less fire yourself, because automation will take over of this particular task. And this is something which I don't see at all in German companies. And of course, it requires a lot of investment into basic architectures. You need data engines. If your business is very much into real time and you need this engine powering real-time data, you need to transform a lot in your IT. Having said that, comparing to the United States, especially where I work a lot, more or less all my clients are there. In Germany, I don't have real clients. So Germans ask me, please train us. Could you talk to us about strategy? And they expect PowerPoints from me. They don't expect products and services.
Oh, Anastassia, where's your PowerPoint? I'm so disappointed today that you didn't share your PowerPoints with us.
Exactly. So,
okay, it's interesting.
Yeah. So, for my US clients, Canadian clients, I write a memo. So I'm saying like, look, this is what I see. So this is what we've discussed. And by the way, here are 5 teams, and please make your pick, and then we will engage. And this is what you are going to get. So I don't do PowerPoints. So of course, if I train an audience and they are like 60 people, then I need a presentation. But when it's the talk is about something concrete, they are very concrete deliverables, and I don't have this level of engagements in Germany. Then what is going on here, and this is like a mystery to me. I think there's a lot of waste of money and resources. Mm-hmm. Because people try to build something which has been already built. And this is once again, because the C-suite might not know and not understand and not be knowledgeable and sensitive towards of what is going on in the market. So they're building something. This is this not invented here syndrome, and then the end product is very poor. So it's not competitive. So if you take all this investment, if you focus and go really somewhere where it might be very effective and efficient at the same time, then you are a winner. And this is something where I have a lot of concerns. But this is, once again, this literacy, technology literacy. I wrote about this a while ago. So around 1825, global literacy was around 20%. So I guess technology literacy right now is around 20% in Europe, not more. And we need to increase this number. Yep. It's not about being a coder. You don't need to code all the time, but you need to be capable to assess certain things. And for me, it's like being in a kitchen. And I am a woman, I'm allowed to make this comparison. So I guess some of us might be fantastic chefs, right? And compete in some TV competitions, whatever. But everyone can fry an egg. So even if you are have two left hands, you still would be capable to fry an egg and to make a sandwich. So for me, with technology, it's more or less the same. We should all be capable to fry an egg. And not call an IT guy for every minor thing. And this is, again, leadership. It's willingness to admit we might not know something. And it's, something which should be installed at every layer of the organization. I think that digital literacy should be a key component in the skill set of any HR manager. Because those people are in charge not just to fire and hire, but they are in charge to retrain. And they should be capable to talk to some providers, maybe like yourself or your competitors, and invite you, please give us this or that program to retrain our workforce. Some of this workforce might not be even redundant if, for example, the company says, oh, look, we understand we have this data, and so AI right now is not perfect. So I just talk about AI. What I mean is machine learning. Obviously, we need to train computers. For training computers, we need tagged data. Why should we make those people redundant? They should sit down and just tag, let's say, meteorology data. It's a very complex data set. They understand what they are looking at. Computer does not. Computer does not know, is it a cat? Is it a dog? Is it Anastassia? Is it a house? You need to teach computer what you're looking at. And so there are specialized niches in Germany. So those pockets of excellence, of industrial knowledge, make those people train data and build system to increase this data training competence in your employee base. It might be a new future instead of making people redundant and being fearful of automation. So just an idea.
Yeah, I think, that looking forward, and let's shift to a post-COVID time. What will that mean, right? If what you describe, if we, try to picture business after this year's probably not only this year's, but probably we'll have COVID until, probably maybe even mid or end of next year. Yes. Let's say what, and I'm looking at the first question about the new normal. What do you think will be or should be the new normal post-COVID in our business life?
Yes.
Just, ideas. What do you think?
Look, so everyone knows how to manage cost base. So this is the easiest thing, even if people kind of, are tearful or we need to cut costs, but everyone knows how to cut costs. So this is something which will be on the table of every single person, cutting cost, improving cash efficiency. So I don't want to go there. What is a very interesting question, and I don't know the answer to this. So usually in a crisis, companies try to focus on something. But in COVID, we understand we need to diversify because our supply chains are so fragile. So what does it mean in terms of diversification? Companies require diversification strategies. Here, digital might help. What will it be in details? I don't have an answer, but this is something to consider and to start thinking about. Then another thing is, so I will start with some very large global trend and then kind of, translate it for Germany. So we observe, and it's not COVID, it's just the fact, lack or absence of US, sorry. So we observe absence of US leadership on a global scale, and we observe a surge in soft power from China. So obviously it's been provoked, all those wars on tariffs, and what happened around Huawei and companies in China not being capable to work with US companies in Android, also operating system, and then semiconductors. But obviously Europe is in between. So how will Europe decide on whether to kind of team with the United States tech or whether to team with China? What I'm a not huge believer is that we will build everything on our own. It's not going to happen. So we need to be very strategic in all the decisions we are currently taken in terms of infrastructure and internet infrastructure. And here, once again, I'm a huge believer in distributed data markets. I'm a huge believer in blockchain technologies, but blockchain technologies right now lack, let's say, protocols to scale. So they are fantastic projects to scale blockchain. So you are familiar with one of them, Ocean in Berlin, Ocean Foundation. So this something where the future is for me in Europe, and it's a deeply European movement, though the key builders are even not European by their, let's say, place of birth. Yeah. So that's something to consider. So I think that there's a chance to look into how can we play with or against those global forces, US and China, and people understanding both powers would be, let's say, very welcome, or I hope they will be very welcome in the boardrooms and in C-suite of German companies. And then I think what is going to happen, so I mean, so there's this saying, like, we have the market economy and now we have a market society. I think that the trend might be reversed, and we might go more into the social mode, but to what extent? Because we can't put a lot of burden in terms of taxation on future generations. And I think that there will be a lot of discussions about sustainability. What does it imply? And it's not just the environment, but it's a relationship with the community. It's relationship with local R&D centers, with schools. It's a workforce management, not just in terms of automation, but retraining. So this is something which I guess will get very prominently on corporate agenda, or at least I hope it will be, because I think there's a necessity. Without
also, do you think there's maybe a chance that we can do this? If you look at the for fight for climate crisis, all these things. If you look at the data right now, it's pretty interesting to see we are down, and you look at the sky, you look at all these cities that suddenly have clean air. Like we can now really visualize the big difference between having a full throttle and stopping right now. So is there, maybe there's also hope in certain parts of civil society, that with this disruptional event that is happening right now, that we have a chance to rethink the way we want to do business in the future, and maybe also the way that we can take care for the planet. Really have a real look at climate crisis on all levels in society, also in boardrooms, because very often businesses, are not taking part in that discussion. They are forced into it. And yes, if you look at the last 2 years, there were more, companies committing themselves to, zero emissions, especially automotive industry, also aviation, really showing that they care, that really do it. But isn't there an opportunity to reimagine an economy again? Do you see that happening, or do you think because multilateralism is under pressure and we see a shift towards each nation, like especially of course the United States trying to be alone and not cooperate with anybody, that we miss that chance? Or what does it need for that to happen? What do you think?
So look, I'll probably give quite an unpleasant answer here. So first of all, of course, never waste a good crisis. Yeah, so that's true for, let's say, some events which are disruptive on a minor scale. And then now we have a global event of the magnitude of the big depression of 1929 or 1930. Never waste a good crisis. Having said that, we need pressure from shareholder organizations, from big investors. So they just need to step up and lead, because I'm not saying that certain corporate leaders will fire themselves. It's not going to happen. So you need to have a pressure from investors, and they need to formulate a certain agenda. In terms of sustainability and in terms of, let's say, short-term expectations versus long-term expectations. So, large pension funds, large funds, mixed funds, index funds, then proxy advisors, they really need to step up, because this is those organizations are, let's say, the organizations every board member or C-suite executive will listen to. So I think that there should be a review on growth and what does it imply. And here, so you might know this perspective of Václav Smil, who is a Canadian professor, I think of Czech origin. So he writes a lot about energy, and he's claiming we can't grow as we used to do in the past, because we have just one planet, so certain resources and capacities are limited. And then, of course, there is the Silicon Valley view and McAfee view that you can grow still with innovation, and you can achieve the same with less resources. And obviously, I am in this camp. So how to use technology to achieve growth with less resources, or not to pollute and still be sustainable and still be a good employee and good corporate citizens, but doing something different. And this will require more agility and mental flexibility from every participant. So I'm more in this camp, but I respect, so this book, Growth, of Václav Smil, is a must-read for every corporate leader on the planet. I think it's very well written and understood.
Let's stick to the capital side. I think it's interesting that, you say the most effective push probably can or has to come from capital side. Someone like Larry Fink from BlackRock, it's a couple of years now, he is sending the letters to CEOs, and he's been pushing harder and harder and harder. Still, it seems we probably need 1,000 Larry Finks in all countries to do that, because so far, and also here, if I look to, let's say, Germany, I haven't heard of anybody taking that same position, openly speaking up. Is this really, because what I think is interesting, it comes down to such a small number of people on the planet. If you look at those huge investments, I mean, these companies are huge. They have trillions of dollars under management. Still, the number of people is very small. So I don't know, I get a little nervous thinking that a part of the future of our planet is pretty much depending on those people, reflecting for us and then making pressure. Do you think that That's a fact. We probably can't change that, right?
Look, we will not change certain facts, let's say, in a very quick way. But, at the beginning of our conversation, I was talking about health of equity.
Yes.
I mean, and by the way, Larry Fink, it was, I think, 17th of January of 2018 when this letter was published. And I know a number of European CEOs who told to my face, this is hypocrisy, it's just a lip service.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Larry meant it well, and I think that his governance people, they are trying to do their best. We lived in a very, let's say, favorable economy, so companies were capable to deliver, and that was kind of, the focus. And I think investors and the companies, they need to re-educate themselves on how to put those things together without being too disruptive and without being too contradicting in terms of, let's say, performance management. Yeah, what does it mean to perform well in a corporate environment? Having said that, I believe we need to have different capital ecosystems. So something like business angels, capability to raise a token fund to, let's say, fund certain ventures, certain projects, capabilities to crowdsource, capabilities to donate for causes which might be close to your heart. I mean, sometimes even €5 a month might be a huge difference if, for example, everyone in the city of Berlin or in the city of Hamburg donates, right? So there are means and there are ways to get power to alternative sources. I'm not talking now about trillions, but I'm talking about funding of certain ventures and certain ecosystems. So this is something to develop. And I think what we need really, again, so we talk about capital, we talk about digital technology, but it's all up to leadership. So you can't outsource leadership, and fortunately and unfortunately, people need to step up and lead. And sometimes leadership is not just a characteristic of a title, but it's a characteristic of a person. And unfortunately, if you are not favorably seen by your boss, but you have the search and you have the capabilities, then you need to leave this job and go somewhere else. And the world is still big. So
we have a question here, Anastassia, that is, a little bit, touching on that area. It's the question of how come company structures, North America, Germany, and US, developed so different over time. Do you think it's a cultural issue, or what is the reason that it is so different? Also, what you described from the discussions you had in boardrooms, etc.
Yeah.
What do you think is the reason for that? Is it culture only?
Well, it's history too. So obviously, I'm not a historian or economical historian, but something like social security system in Germany, it came with Bismarck. Yeah. So first reforms in the 19th century. So insurance, social insurance, social care. This is something which is very different to the United States, right? So things like sickness leave, maternity leave, etc. Then participants of the employee base in governance and in management, so trade unions participation. This is something which is not on the same scale and level in North America. So I must admit, I'm not really familiar with Asian governance. I'm slightly familiar with Australian because it's quite close to what we have in the United Kingdom and in the United States. But I mean, it's just certain historical developments and emphasis on certain type of leadership and organization. This is probably the reason. But when I hear all those questions on governance, and sometimes I'm getting confronted like so you are so US driven. Yeah, I might admit I might have my preferences, and I might have certain inclinations, and I might be biased, so I openly admit it. However, the investment base is global. So you have this Vanguard or BlackRock in the United States, and you have them in Germany, yeah, investing into DAX companies. And of course, your, let's say, governance person or your analyst might have a different name, but they belong to Vanguard and BlackRock and whoever. So, you know, you need to have this global perspective and then a local perspective with all, let's say, the tribal dances and traditions around it. Yeah. So
Yeah, but I want to, you know, maybe ask you and add to that. Is it as well? You know, I think if people describe German companies, structures, cultures as, you know, very often we are pretty still pretty hierarchic. Everything is well organized. Everything functions. Right? Everything is. If you look at the companies built post-war that we have, you know, a great growth. You know, high level of stability, high level, as you say, of security, and that goes probably then hand in hand with less courage, more maintaining, more managing, you know, and optimizing processes that we do. Germans love that, right? We do that. And probably we are not as happy with, you know, if this flux environment where suddenly you need ideas, need to be agile. So this is probably pretty stressful for us. While my impression always is that North American companies are a little bit more flexible or agile, but maybe that's wrong. I don't know. What is your perspective on that?
Look, I mean, so once again, I'm not an economical historian, and this is a question to look at. So obviously, there's a huge fluctuation, you know, in how many years a company stays into, let's say, Fortune 500. And I think in the 20th century, so before the 90s, so I think it was like 30, 40, even more years. So now it's like 15, and then there's a switch. And so on the top 10 Fortune companies, there are 8 global AI companies. So 5 US companies, the usual suspects, plus 3 Chinese. So Alibaba, Baidu, and Tencent. And those are on the top 10, right? All AI-centric businesses. So non-European companies. So what is an issue in Europe, and I'm not saying being reckless, but this is something to think about. People don't talk about growth. So we are talking about dying profitably. So we are not calling this that. No one would admit that we are dying profitably, but this is what is happening. And in my eyes, if you look in corporate structure and you see, let's say, a regulatory department of a size bigger than a product department, then there's a problem. I don't need to discuss anything with this company any longer. I just look at those numbers and I understand there's an issue. It's not to be too provocative. It's just we need a lot of growth companies, and we need to have a cultural failures too, because where there is growth, they are mistakes, they are failures, they are sometimes crisis linked to this growth, and this is something Europe needs to relearn. And it's not just Germany. Look in France. Yeah, so it's a slightly different beast. But I mean, France, Scandinavian markets, you have Netherlands, you know, south of Europe. So we are all in the same, let's say, mood of managing the decline.
We have more questions popping up at the end now. I want to start with the first one. In your view, what are the top 3 must-haves regarding digital for our typical Mittelstand companies? The must 3 things on the digital side. What would you say?
So first, understanding what data assets do you have, just the understanding. So what is your data? Then having a good infrastructure for this data, including a data lake. Without that, you can't even touch it. And then someone who could think through how to organize a data market for this particular company, for this particular industry, because this will lead to the questions of the ecosystem, monetizing, new business models, and the like.
Great, thank you. Next question. Someone is looking for some reasons to be optimistic about the future of a country that is very dependent on tourism in that moment. Do we have any positive thoughts on how can you stay optimistic if you're very dependent on tourism at the moment?
Well, look, I would love to, but I mean, tourism is a huge ecosystem in a way, right? So can you have a certain digital experience of tourism, including virtual reality, including, I mean, you need to think innovatively about this and deliver certain pockets of experience, because tourism is all about experience. Certain pockets of experience might be delivered digitally. Of course, it's not a huge substitute, right? But then again, provide this experience, think about user experience, and then diversify. So I think there's no other way. I personally, I thrive in an environment where I need to learn something new and diversify myself, but it's me. Many people are very, very afraid. But I think, once again, for young generations, they might be very willing to figure out something new.
Great. Last question. And we're running a little bit over time. I hope it's fine for you, Anastassia. Last question. Looking at all the change that is coming and the different areas we had an insight in, what could be a positive outcome for future generations for us? If we look at you have kids, you have a daughter as well. You know, I have 2 kids. Looking forward, what could be a positive thing? If you could say what you wish, what could be a positive thing coming out of this crisis?
So I think the emphasis that we should not be wasteful with resources, and we should be forward-looking in terms of education. And right now, it's time where everyone learns something. So be it how to operate Zoom, or be it how to, let's say, archive your documents on some digital platform, everyone has to learn. Just take this precious moment and, try to bring it forward. So we are all in perpetual learning mode, in perpetual education, and there's nothing more important. Education keeps us agile and flexible. So that would be probably my last remark.
Okay, thank you so much. And I want to thank you and in the name of all the participants that we had. We will make a recording. We have a recording. We will post a recording on all social media channels. I want to thank everybody who joined us. And I want to thank, again, Anastassia, taking the time today to have our little boardroom meeting today about, the global status. And I hope to see you very soon. And as well, if you want to keep up with us, we'll have this studio coming up again in 2 weeks. Sign up for our newsletter and stay tuned and stay healthy. And as you say, as we always say, stay at home. Thanks again. And good luck to everybody. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And please read my column. So I post twice a month in Wirtschaftswoche. It's always on Tuesday.
That's right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.